I've heard this comparison before, probably just because of the chair that I'm in recently. So I've heard just more conversation of it. But there's kind of these two camps of business people, and sometimes people really glorify the start from nothing. People are like, oh, 9017, like you started from nothing. It's like, well, sure, but there's also very little on the line. There's very little to lose.
Sure.
There's very little of everything. So it's like, sure, it's great if it really takes off, but at this point, it's more of a life raft. And so if it gets a hole and it goes down, I mean, I'm not like taking a lot with me.
Great point.
In that way, I think people, or at least people that have that view of like rose-colored glasses of starting from nothing, really undervalue the uphill battle of buying something existing, because it's kind of like inheriting like a really complex yacht. It's like, well, I'm responsible for this now, and there's a lot of people on board, and there's not autopilot that you can just tune this on. Any business, you stop getting customers in the top, they're trickling out the bottom, and all the efficiencies to learn. And so I think there's just probably an underappreciation for how challenging that is. Did you feel that at all?
That's a wonderful perspective, because I've never thought about it that way.
Sure.
Because there is, that idea. I guess I have looked at, like 917 and thought like, man, how nice it feels. And maybe it is because it is not to, you use the word life raft, right?
Yeah.
Because it is something where it's like, like it's okay if it blows up, it's all mine.
Right.
If it, the life raft has to come to shore and we're done or whatever, that's okay too. So you hit the nail on the head. Like for me, I feel that a ton. I feel the weight of, Brian Pfeiffer's legacy that he has with Western Printing of Marshall, now Western Print Group. I feel that weight of wanting it to continue. I feel the weight of, a staff that, like I said, has been there 35, 40 years. I feel the weight of them, retiring well. I feel, that they're going to finish strong within their career. So I absolutely feel that part of it. And because it is, like you said, it, if it's a yacht, it's 15 people. It's a building that people know.
Yeah.
So like at the height of COVID, when you're like, are we going to make it? Like, I don't know, what would this look like? What would this feel like? And that is where your faith comes in. And I have a lot of good friends that we've had conversations that are also business owners, and they know every single year that starts, every single month that starts, that if this all went away, I'm still secure with my walk.
Yeah.
And I'm secure with knowing why I'm truly here. My identity is not Western Print Group. Your identity is not 917. It's not.
Yeah.
Your identity is who you are and being obedient to your Savior. And so, but you have to remind yourself of that, right?
Yeah.
When you're spending 50, 60 hours in the grind, you're not spending 60 hours reading the Bible and praising and worshiping and doing kingdom work. And so you have that. I mean, you just got to remember that part of it. It's like, if it didn't work, even at this level, it's okay. Yeah. That's fine.
Yeah, and something I was reflecting on last week that you can probably relate to as well. It's like, I was thinking about 9017, and it's like it's standing on its own. The financial milestones that we've crossed, would be peanuts compared to an established business. But we're getting there and getting excited. And I was just thinking like, oh man, what if I don't know what to do next? And then I kind of had this like relief moment where I was like, wait a minute, I didn't know how to do any of that stuff. Yeah. So obviously I didn't do that stuff. I mean, I've been obedient and I've been here, but like, I really believe like the hand of God has just been on it. And so if I feel like, well, that wasn't me because I don't know how to do that, then I should have a lot of confidence that whatever needs to be next is also going to get worked out too.
Right.
As long as I keep showing up, being faithful.
Yes.
Putting my hand, to the grind and trying to make an impact. So that was at least a relief for me. I don't know if you feel the same with all the weight that you talk about of just there's this legacy, there's this history, there's this building that
Yeah.
efficiencies and kind of like, well, you didn't know how to do it before. It still
Right.
worked out.
Yeah, and chasing obedience.
Mm-hmm.
You know, staying in your word, staying in your devotional time, and you know, we haven't even talked about raising kids.
Yeah.
You know, being a good husband,
Yeah.
being a good friend, being a good dad. You know, that's a whole nother component that goes into this. But I agree that you do see those pieces show up on. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. What was the last thing that you just said with that? Because I started talking about my family and kids here for a second.
And we should talk about them too. 'Cause
We
I wanna
should,
mention them.
absolutely.
But just the understanding that like, oh, wait a minute, or the realization that like, I didn't know how to do this stuff.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah.
Yep. Because, yeah, I like entering what are you going to do when your pressman retires?
Yeah.
What are you going to do when you lose this big customer? And sometimes when there's so much going on and there's all these new things, I haven't done this before, and you're trying to figure out how to navigate it.
Mm-hmm.
That's often when I feel on fire the most, or I feel like I'm doing my best.
Yeah.
Because I'm just navigating waters and I'm just forced to. Like, you have to do this, otherwise you're not going to get through it.
Mm-hmm.
And so when your next opportunity comes up, I think you'll be in love with it. And if you know that you're in love with it and it's going really well, then it's not necessarily that it's going really well, but if you're in love with what you're doing and trying to figure out
Yeah.
and solve, then you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I think you just run into block after block after block.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you can find that it's like the square peg in the round hole, and you're like, I can't keep jamming this thing in anymore. Like, it's just, I
Yeah.
have to move aside. But we've had enough of those where I'm like, you know, because you do work through the pandemic, you work through a large customer and leaving, and you're like, man, it worked itself out.
Yeah.
Like, you shifted and
Yeah.
you adjusted and
There's
you
obviously
pivoted.
some favor here.
Yeah.
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 That should give us faith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not like, and you can get on that slope of like, it's favor that, you know, financial favor, or, you know, publicity favor, like people look at me this way.
Mm-hmm.
It's just favor, like, I feel okay today.
Yeah,
Like,
I've
I
got you.
feel fine. Like,
Yeah.
our 15 employees are going to get paid. You know, our staff is going to have work to do today.
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes without those milestones that you had to cross through,